Hello, good afternoon, Sabyasachi.
Good afternoon, Sneha. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Merry Christmas and advanced Happy New Year.
You Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance. Because we can start with the session, so I'll just briefly give our intro and then we can begin.
Okay, sure.
Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to you all for the ninth session of our Ocean Literacy course, Ocean Literacy: Know Your Planet Beyond Land. As we near the conclusion of this course, we have explored the ocean through ecological sustainability, biodiversity, security, governance, and economic lenses. Today's session focuses on one of the most intensive and crucial interfaces between land and sea. The topic for today's session is conservation issues in the coastal habitats. Coastal habitats are biodiversity hotspots that provide essential ecosystem services such as coastal protection, climate regulation, fisheries support, and livelihood for millions of people. However, these habitats are increasingly threatened by climate change, sea level rise, pollution, and unplanned coastal development. Understanding these conservational challenges is vital for building resilience, coastal ecosystem, and communities. And to understand more about this topic, we have with us Mr. Sabyasachi Chakraborty. We are pleased to have you as a resource person for today's session. Mr. Chakraborty holds a master's degree in marine science from University of Calcutta. He has worked as a research fellow on several projects related to Sundarban mangrove ecosystem and marine and estuarine fisheries at the West Bengal University of Animal and Fishery Sciences. These projects were sponsored by the Government of India, Department of Science and Technology, and the Government of West Bengal. His doctoral research focuses on the ecological dynamics of mesozooplankton, particularly copepods, in and around the Sundarban mangroves, supported by relevant scientific publications. Currently, he is associated with the Nature, Environment and Wildlife Society, NEWS, one of the country's leading conservation civil society organization. At NEWS, he is actively engaged in the technical aspects of participatory research on sustainable aquaculture in mangrove ecosystem, a ecosystem based climate adaptive conservation linked livelihood initiative. It has been implemented in the Indian Sundarbans in the context of global sea rise level. Indeed, looking forward to your session. I'll encourage all the participants to listen to the session very carefully and come up with a lot of questions as well. So, without further delay, I'll invite Mr. Sabyasachi Chakraborty to begin with our today's session. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Sneha, for this introduction and welcome all the participants to this eighth batch Ocean Literacy course. A very good afternoon and wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in advance. So I will, without any further delay, I would move on to my presentation. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can share. I've permitted you to share.
Okay, thank you. So is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So welcome once again, and today my topic of lecture will be on the conservation issues in the coastal habitats. It's a very relevant topic in the terms of climate change, and already Sneha has briefly described in a nutshell about the importance of the coastal ecosystem and its how threatened or how vulnerable it is getting day by day due to due to the impeding threats of climate change, anthropogenic pressures, and all. So, So I will begin with this slide. This is actually a summary. It is it is related to all this thing. I will begin with the Earth systems and its interaction. We all know that the Earth system has four major components: the atmosphere, the biosphere, and the lithosphere and hydrosphere, and all the means it's the land sea interaction or the land water interface where the where we live, where the biodiversity sustains, where the aquatic fisheries, the aquatic animals, they all uh, reside. So these systems, they are all interconnected. It's not that without without one system the other can function. So the four major components are the atmosphere, lithosphere, hydrosphere, and biosphere, which are interconnected. The atmosphere, it provides us the oxygen and carbon dioxide for the plants to grow, the oxygen for the animals to survive, and it also regulates and also influences the weather and the climate of a particular region or as a whole of an area. The lithosphere, it includes the land, soil, and the rocks that supports the plant and the human activities. And the hydrosphere, it is comprised of the ocean, rivers, lakes, groundwaters, which are essential for all the life and life forms. And it also helps in to regulate the climate. The biosphere, it includes all the living organisms and exists where air, land, water interact. So we can understand that these all the three or four systems, they are always interconnected, and depending on its functioning, the whether it's functioning good or functioning bad, it actually influences the entire life forms there. So plants and animals and humans, they depend simultaneously on these resources. The energy and the nutrients, they are also continuously moving between these. There is a constant energy cycle which is going on in all these spheres, and if there is any disturbances is one of the sphere, either it may be pollution, it may be deforestation, it may be climate change, or any other things which actually influences the functioning of one ecosystem, one component will actually uh, in will actually affect the entire earth system. So it is very important to sustainably manage all these natural resources, such as this land, water, air, living resources, and it is critical because they are based on it. The ecological balance will be in an equilibrium, and it will ensure the survival of the life, and especially for the fragile regions, fragile areas such as the coastal habitat, which is our topic today, and mangrove ecosystems, because these areas or these regions are actually prone to natural disasters, are under severe threat due to the anthropogenic activities, climate change. And so it is very important in this perspective that these natural resources are properly sustainably managed. So now let me move on to our topic. Actually, our topic is conservation issues in the coastal habitat. So, but first, before moving into the issues or the we need to understand what are the coastal habitats or what are the coasts. Generally, the coast, we all know that any landmass when it ends at a point where the water or the aquatic portion, aquatic body starts, is in the interface between the land and the water is known as the coastal areas. It may so any landmass which is actually uh, uh, what I say converging into the sea area, that is the coastal area. And this area, we all know, the coastal areas are very diverse in terms of biodiversity, in terms of occupation like fishing, and so these areas have huge potential for to support, and this is the area where most majority of the population they thrive in this region. And these coastal habitats are also very important. I will come later on to the present to my presentation. This is very important in terms of managing the climate hazards. So uh, as a whole, generally, the coastal habitats are of six types. These are the headland bay coasts, the coastal plains, the tropical coral reef coasts, the rocky coasts and fjords, permafrost coast, and the major deltaic region. So the headland bays are, I will just explain in a brief that what are the headland bays? So headland bays coast are mainly irregular coastlines. They have alternating rocky headlands and sheltered bays. This has been formed due to the weathering and the differential erosion, and it is mainly commonly you will find those regions in the tectonically active or the varied tectonically active regions. For example, you can find these coasts in this Konkan coast of Maharashtra. Even if you go to Visakhapatnam and Vizag or the Araku Valley, you will find that these are mainly you can find it there in the other parts of the world, such as in the southwest coast of England or the California coast. They have these prominent features like a headland where the it is actually protruding towards the sea, and there is a bay-like region, a backwater type area where you can find the water also. So next is the coastal plain. These are low-lying with gently sloping coast. These are formed by due to the sediment deposition brought from the inland rivers and the sea, and these are hydrodynamic region and often densely populated. The eastern coastal plains of India, stretching along the Bay of Bengal from the Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. Next is the tropical coral reef coast. These are mainly the warm water coast. They are found in the Tropic of Cancer and areas where Tropic of Capricorn, not the Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, where the temperature is around 20 to 30 degree on an average in a year. And these warm water coasts are harbors the coral reefs which grow parallel to fringing the shore and provides the natural protection to the coastal areas. And coral reefs are also high supports high marine biodiversity. For example, you can find these in the Gulf of Mannar, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Gulf of Kutch. Maybe you are also quite familiar with the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, Maldives, in the Caribbean Sea also. So the next are the rocky coast and the fjords. So rocky coasts are more or less similar like the headland bay coasts, but they are steep. They are resistant coastline shape due to the tectonic activity or glacial erosions, whereas fjords they are deep, carved by glacier activity. So, rocky coasts you can find in this Andhra Pradesh, Visakhapatnam, Bhimunipatnam, western coast of India, the Konkan and the Malabar coast. Fjords you will find in Norway's, New Zealand's, Chile, Alaska, where the glacier activity is much more prominent. The permafrost coasts are mainly found in the cold regions like the Alaska, Arctics, Greenlands, which are the regions are always permanently covered by ice, and it is also they are also very highly vulnerable to erosion due to warming and ice melting. And the major deltas are one of the other. These are mainly the river-dominated coast, which have been formed by the accumulation of sediments at the river mouths. They are also extremely fertile, but also highly vulnerable to this uh, flooding, climate change, subsidence, where there is always a tectonic activity ongoing and the plates are always moving. Sometimes this one plate subsides under the another tectonic plate, so that actually might affect the formation of the deltas. And sea level rise is also a very eminent threat to the formation of deltas. The most important we all know is the Ganga Brahmaputra Meghna Delta, which includes the Sundarban mangrove ecosystem, the Mahanadi Delta, the Godavari Delta, for example, the Krishna Delta. And so these are some of the important deltas in our country. In abroad, you can find the Amazon Delta, which is also very much famous, which harbors uh, the rainforests. Oh. So now we come to the features of our Indian coastline. So it is comprised of the eastern coast and the western coast. A total of nine states and four union territories are in this coast are present in the Indian coastline. So previously, that there was from 1970s there was using old methodology when this entire Indian coastline was mapped. The coastline was measured as 7,516 kilometers, including the mainland and the islands. So previously, old resolution maps were used, a scale of 1 is to 4.4 point. Just give me 1 second. Just give. Sorry. So yes, last uh, the scales were low resolution, and the coastal features like the small bays, inlets, and estuaries were not made. Were not that much prominent. That's why this resulted in a shorter, more linear coastline. But now in 2023 and 24, it was again recalculated. The comprehensive reevaluation process involved the collaborative effect between several key government agencies like the Survey of India, uh, the National Hydrographic Office, Ministry of Home Affairs, and National Maritime Security Coordinator. So, based on the new methodology adopted, it included the high resolution electronic navigation charts. The scales were far more uh, reduced and developed. It was developed by the National Hydrographic Office. Advanced technologies such as the GIS, LiDAR, GPS, drone imaging, and satellite altimetry, these were used, and it actually captured the detailed natural bends, curves, and irregularities of the coast. And presently the updated coastline length, including the islands, is 11,000. 98.81 kilometers. So there has been an increase of more than 3,500 kilometers presently. So this is the natural length and the extent of the present length and the extent of the Indian coastline. So it comprises the 9 states and 4 union territories of the mainland, and the islands with the Bay of Bengal in the east, Indian Ocean in the south, and the Arabian Sea, and supports a wide array of coastal activities and livelihood of more than 300 million people inhabiting this region. It is the coastlines are harbor different types of coastal habitats such as the beach, sand dunes, intertidal mudflats, mangrove forests, sea grasses, coral reefs, and lagoons plays a significant role in the growth of nation's economy. So here in this picture, you can see state-wise the coastline length. The Gujarat actually leads Gujarat in terms in state in Gujarat leads the highest coastline length, and in terms of union territories, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands they lead the coastline length in terms of length of. So, what are the features? What are the implication of this revised coastline data? First of all, in terms of maritime security, the longer coastline requires updated security strategies and enhances monitoring of illicit activities and threats with radar and naval deployment. Disaster in terms of disaster management and preparedness, accurate coastline aids early warning systems for cyclones, tsunamis, sea level rise, supports the hazard line delineation and targeted mitigation efforts. So it actually helps for much more strong monitoring. It will facilitate much more stronger monitoring in case of natural disasters. It will help to demarcate the exclusive economic zones more prominently. It will help to optimize fishing, development of offshore energy projects, coastal tourism and trade infrastructure. Coastal regulation and management will provide with more accurate foundation or basis for the CRZ notification, and also protect ecosystem and livelihoods of the coastal communities. It will also help in framing environmental policies and conservation by supporting will support biodiversity conservation, erosion monitoring, and protection of sensitive areas, facilitate in mangrove and coral reef restoration, as well as it will help in better infrastructure planning, where to work, where not to work. The selection of the sites could be much more easier. Guide. So yes, now we come on to the importance of the coastal zone. They have several important values. First of all, they are rich in in biodiversity and biological activity also, uh, and it has a high aesthetic value for tourism or recreation. In terms of biological and natural resources, coral reefs, seagrass beds, mangroves, and the other ecosystems, and they are cheap source of protein like fish and the crabs, the other these are all the local community they can easily harvest fishes and for their local food consumption, and source of livelihoods and important backbone for the local economy. Rather than this transportation and navigation of the ships, Most of the settlements and housing are also within the coastal areas, and it's also rich in natural resources like petroleum. So coastal zone is very important in terms of its. So, what are the ecosystem services of the coastal zone? So, there are mainly four services, ecosystem services of the coastal zone. Like the provisioning services, it supports the food security and the livelihood of the local community by providing them with fish, crabs, seaweed, salt, and other marine resources. They have regulating services like the mangroves, coral reefs, sand dunes, wetlands. They protect coastline from erosion, storm surges, cyclones, and flooding, and also help in regulating the climate through by sequestering carbon dioxide, which is known as the blue carbon sequestration. It provides the supporting services. The coastal zones serve as the breeding nursery and feeding ground for the marine and terrestrial fishes, birds. It maintains the biodiversity and the nutrient cycling. Cultural services, they are due to its aesthetic value, and they support tourism, recreation, cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and spiritual values of the coastal communities. And besides, there is one more which actually economic services that is also within this. It's not a other criteria category, but it's within the supporting services. But I have just highlighted it separately. The ports, fisheries, and aquaculture, tourism, coastal agriculture contribute significantly to this national and local economy. So now everyone, I hope everyone have visited to a beach or any coastal areas near your where you reside. So whenever you go to a beach, it's not just the beach ends and the water mark starts. Actually, in between the land and the sea, there is a zonation of areas. Uh, whenever you will again go to a beach or uh, visit there, just try, you can try to understand that ecosystem. So the area, there are many. There is a beach is actually divided into several portions. The First of all, it's the area. It's the back shore, means the area between the high water. During high tide or during spring tides, you'll find that the water actually reaches to higher areas compared to the low when the intensity of the tides are less. So there is an uppermost mark where the water actually reaches, and there is a lowest lower mark where the so in between this area, this is the area where the high water mark and the landward limit of the marine activity occurs. So this is the backshore area. The foreshore is the area lying between the high tide area and the low tide area, which actually gets washed twice a day. So this is the most important area for the uh, marine activity. The inshore area is the lowest low water mark and the point where the waves cease to have any influence on the land. The offshore is the area where the point where the waves cease to impact and the seabed they impact the seabed, and in which activity is limited to the deposition of sediments. So after this, actually the seaward portion starts. Then there are some other prominent features like the berms. These are the low ridges above the beach face in the foreshore area, and there are longshore bars also. Actually, these are the which actually runs parallelly with the beach side, and this is actually a linear ridge of sand, which and here actually the um, waves start to break. So this area is also known as the breaker zone. So these are the coastal zonation of a coastal region. So now we come to the most important part, the intertidal area. Uh, s- uh, in any estuarine region or any coastal area, when there is a high tide and the low tide, so twice a day. So on the high tide, when the region gets covered, and after the water recedes, and during low tide, portion of area actually gets exposed, just exposed, and this area is known as the intertidal area, which actually experiences the both the high tides and the low tides, and due to the influence of the land and sea, uh, it contains a rich assemblage of biodiversity in this region, and is also very highly productive. Apart from this intertidal area, there are two other portions, two other zones, which is known as the subtidal area, which is always submerged under the water, and and there is another area which is known as the supratidal area. This is the highest high water reaches when during the spring tides. The water actually reaches to that portion. Otherwise, it stays exposed always. So now I go to the different kinds of this coastal habitats. Just they are mainly the here we mainly find the rocky shores and the sandy beaches and the rocky beaches. So uh, what are these rocky beaches? They are mostly composed of hard rocks and boulders. Sometimes there are cliffs also. They have tidal zonation. Sometimes during low tide, a portion of it is submerged. Some during the highest high tide, most of the portion is submerged. And it is not that they are devoid of any organisms, but they are rich in different of organisms and their community is also very unique. The biodiversity is very unique, mostly due to due to the high influence of this tide. The areas, even if you have visited any rocky beaches, you will find that the tidal impact is very much higher there in those regions, and you will find, if you look closely, you will find that the organisms they grow residing in that area are quite. You will find barnacles there. You will find algae. You will find invertebrates, mostly the mussels, limpets, and occasionally you will find fish and other vertebrates. So then those mussels or barnacles, you will find that they are attached to the body of the rocks, and sometimes you will also find that these mussels they are also tra- uh, tied with that kind of thready like structures which are also known as the byssus threads. So and you will find green algae, mosses also you will find there, and a lot of this area actually, or this kind of shores, they experience wide range of fluctuations in terms of temperature and salinity, and They also possess adaptive features to survive these extremities, such as closing their shells. Because once the tide recedes, and when due to the sun, the evaporation is also high. So the organisms, they need to retain their moisture for their survival, so they close their shells to prevent dehydration. And most of the organisms like barnacles and mussels, they firmly attach to the rocks to resist wave action and predation. So here are two pictures of two different areas. Here you can find the wave actually coming in inwards. It's the high tide, and can see green patches of this algae in this region. So, and depending on the availability of the water, where the amplitude of the water, the nature of the animals also start to vary. Mostly the organisms we will find in the upper extreme areas, they are mostly hard-shelled organisms, deep to prevent the dehydration. And the or most and where the water is much more available, you will find the soft-bodied organisms, soft-shelled organisms, the algae, the sea anemones, sea urchins. So, sandy shores are also a kind of a prominent features whenever you visit the beaches. So these are primarily composed of dynamic coastal habitats, presence of loose and unconsolidated sediments. Because one time the wave comes in, it takes away the sand, and then again the sands are again deposited. So it's very dynamic. It is not that they are fixed like the rocky shores, but there is a movement of sands also. It's influenced by wave action. The wind, strong winds also displace the sand from one area to another. Tides also. So the primarily it is and like the rocky shores also, the it supports a high diversity of marine life. It also has a zonation like the similarly to the rocky areas, rocky shores. And it also experiences a wide range of fluctuation in temperature and salinity. And mostly here they are like the rocky shore organisms, the sandy shore organisms also, they have several adaptive features to survive their extremities. Filter feeders, scavengers, mostly the organisms living here are filter feeders. Predators are common feeding strategies among organisms inhabiting in the sandy shores. Now we come to the salt marshes. It is quite separate from the rocky and the sandy shores. And it experiences the tides, diurnal tides daily, found mostly in the tropical regions, temperate areas, and the higher latitudes. And it is also home to salt tolerant grasses and bushes like Potracia and the sediment. And it's not like say they are quite the substrate is very loose and it's full of sediments. So sometimes if you have an opportunity to visit any estuary, um, so you can try once. You will see that your knees are actually is sunk in the mud half. So it's very loose and it's very full of clay area. It's different, completely different from the other two. Rocky and the sandy shores, and it's home to salt-tolerant grasses, and it provides shelter and breeding ground for many fishes. And it also, during the low tide, when the region is exposed, It also acts as a feeding ground for the migratory and the existing avian birds for food for their food. So now we come to this mangroves. We all are quite familiar with the term mangroves, but we are not that we. It's a very unique ecosystem. It has its own features, its characteristics. It survives in an area which is very dynamic, and it is very much vulnerable. It's very much challenging, and it actually harbors the biodiversity. The biodiversity in this region is also very unique. It is found at the land sea interface near the coastlines in the subtropical and the tropical regions. Uh, Due to the challenging environment, they have developed several adaptive features to survive. They have one of, such as the pneumatophores, because the sediments are very hypoxic in nature, and the sediments and the the aeration is also not that much. Um, so the plans for them to survive in such a dynamic environment, they have developed pneumatophores. What makes it much more tougher is the salinity. So they have developed salt tolerant. The mangroves, the trees, they have developed salt regulating and uh, salt tolerating mechanisms. Many people think that mangroves are different to the compared to the terrestrial trees which we find. It's not that both of them are different. They are more or less the same, just because to survive in this physiologically challenged environment, they have developed several adaptive features, like they have steel roots to strengthen their anchorage, and they support a wealth of life from flora to fauna to people, providing commercial fishing ground, timbers, and other non-timber forest products like honey as a livelihood, and other economic goods also. They only account for only 1.5% of the total coastal ocean area, but are responsible for 14% of the carbon sequestration by the world's ocean. They have an extensive root system. It's not that in the terrestrial plants we'll find that they have a main taproot system, but in the mangroves they have this lateral root system. Where this is because that they have, yeah, because there is always a continuous movement of sediments, that so for better anchorage they need to go for them to stand properly, anchor properly. They have this lateral rooting system. It's not They don't have a prominent or well defined taproot system, but they have very prominent lateral roots. Uh, and most of the carbon sequestered by they sequester carbon 4 to 5 times more than the other terrestrial plants, and these are stored below ground in form of soil carbon or the organic matter. And in India, India accounts for around 3% of the total mangrove cover in South Asia, and it represents 40. In this 3%, there are 46 true mangrove species and hybrids belonging to 14 families and 22 genera, and it is distributed along the coastline of 9 states and 3 union territories in both the east and the west coast. Now, the sea grasses. They are also a very prominent feature and very important coastal ecosystem. Um, they are mainly flowering underwater plants with long thin leaves, and they form a dense mat in shallow waters with their root anchoring the sediment. When they are all from the tropics up to the Arctic Circle, and it's always home to a diverse array of fishes and other marine animals. The epifaunal, it has diverse, abundant epifaunal and infaunal communities. Crabs are there, the wading birds, they forage on the invertebrates in the sea grasses. The fishes, they feed on the feed on the um, these small um, mussels or bivalves. So next we come to coral reefs. So coral reefs, we have heard of coral reefs. They are very beautiful in appearance. It's very unique in nature. So what are these coral reefs? So corals, they are of two types. They are the hard corals and the soft corals. So hard corals are also known as the stony corals. They mainly they are these animals, they secrete and produce a rigid calcium carbonate skeleton, which acts as the backbone for this developing coral reefs. They appear as massive boulders with branching structure of plate-like formations, and their color actually comes from a symbiotic algae known as the zooxanthellae living in their tissues. They grow slowly, but also they play a very crucial role in building the reefs, and they provide habitat for numerous marine species. The soft corals, on the other hand, they are not. They are much more flexible. They are much more flexible, and their structure is supported by tiny spicules or a protein called gorgonin, and they often resemble trees, fans, or plumes that sway with ocean currents. Soft corals are brightly colored and contribute to the reef biodiversity, providing shelter for marine life. And unlike hard corals, they do not build reefs. They are mostly single, and the polyps of the coral usually have 8 tentacles, whereas the hard coral polyps have six, highlighting a very structural difference. So they are, in terms of their structure, and they are completely different in appearance. And these coral reefs also provide several ecosystem services for tourism and recreation. Coral reefs attract millions of tourists. Medicine for source of life-saving drugs, see to treat serious diseases. Coral reefs have been researched upon, and more than new can for many life-saving drugs against the diseases such as cancer. They have medicines, and new biomedical compounds have been found out. Fooding and fishing also, they sustain wide diversity of the fishes, and also acts as uh, home and nurseries for 25% of all marine life. They also protect the coastal. They act as the natural barriers against the uh, against the storm surges, and protect the coastal community and beaches from them. Coral reefs are created by many tiny animals called the coral polyps. The coral polyps limestone skeletons build over time, forming the base of the complex reef habitat. So how human activities actually, how humans and the ecosystem we are connected with each other. The ecosystem connectivity and impacts of ecosystem services from human activities. So here is a figure which actually shows that the have what are the changes that have caused due to the habitat we know that mangroves and coral reefs and the sea grasses, they are now the triple assurance against the climate change, and the destruction of these actually badly impacts the ecosystem as well as the human activities. So the mangroves and the sea grasses, they actually bind the sediments, they absorb the inorganic nutrients, provide buffer against the storms, and as a nursing ground uh, of the different fishes. Likewise, coral reefs and sea grasses also, they provide the um, same services also. But if they are lost, if they are destroyed, then sediment then there will be changes in the nutrients and the sediments and freshwater output. There will more and more the coastal areas will be much more vulnerable. The frequency of the natural storms have increased, so there will be much more erosion of the coastal areas. There will be decreased fisheries, decreased revenue from tourism, which ultimately will lead to the socio-economic change for the coastal population. So, why these ecosystems are very much productive? Coastal areas are shallow because, first of all, it is shallow. The marine environment is based on the penetration of the light. They have been classified into many categories, and uh, the the shallowness of based on the penetration of the light, the photosynthetic activity of the region is very much influenced. The coasts are mainly uh, from are shallow, and the sunlight they can penetrate through the water column, thus enabling the benthic organisms or the bottom dwelling organisms to perform photosynthesis. They receive nutrients from land as runoff and oceans through upwelled waters. Upwelling is a coastal wind-driven process where, due to the Earth's rotation, when the Earth moves, and due to the wind effect, the bottom water, which is the cold water, which is like in the what will I say, in which is actually very in being the cold water is much more nutrient rich, much more the oxygen content is much more. So due to this effect, the water gets in a cycle. The surface water, which is it moves down, and the cold water from the deeper sources it comes up. So there is due to this available, when this nutrients enriched water comes up, the photosynthesis is much, the rate of photosynthesis is enhanced, and the primary production is much more, uh, is- and this actually results in the growth of the phytoplanktons and the algae, and which actually uh, supports the food for the fishes. Furthermore, the organic matter which is in the surface, it sinks down. It also supports the benthic faunal communities, and in this process there is a constant recycling going on. They take up whatever nutrients available, then they consume it, and then they make their whatever they release is again immediately available for primary production. So these are two, three research papers where it with supporting the coastal lagoons, why they are so much productive. So now, what are the threats faced by the coastal zone? One is the environmental degradation. It's happening, rapid deforestation of mangroves, destruction of coral reefs, uh, and so it is getting day by day it is getting much more compromised. Then there is the impact of climate change. The disaster risks have increased much more. Overdevelopment and over exploitation of the coastal resources is actually hampering the coastal and the marine economy. The high population density, the anthropogenic stress has also increased. Then the land-based and sea-based marine pollution, it is also threatening the coastal area, and the natural habitats are being converted to the human uses. Like the mangroves have been deforested, and the areas are now being used, transformed into aquaculture farms, and which has actually led to the destruction of the natural habitats of many animals. So, coastal hazards, they are natural and both human-made, which occurs at the interface between the ocean and the shoreline. They are fast-moving, and sometimes they are also slowly. So, slow onset hazards are shoreline erosion, which continues with time. There is sea level rise, saltwater intrusion, and land subsidence. These are slow onset hazards, and rapid onset hazards are storms, flooding, uh, storm surges, tsunamis. So now we come to the aspects. So there are many challenges. So while conservation, what are the conservation issues? Which we These are the problems which we face when we think of a particular conservation of a particular coastal habitat. So these are many things are involved in this. There are and it is not just that you go there one fine day and you tell that, "No, we will have to conserve this area." It is there has to be a and what we mean it multifaceted approach. It's not the single idea will never work, because and there are many challenges, there are many policies, and there are many uh, you have to consult all the departments and all, so it is not very easy. There are laws also which will not permit you to do. There are coastal regulations are also there. The forest acts are there. The fisheries acts are there. Acts are there. So it is very challenging. So now I'll talk about how the country, or what are the different management strategies that are being done for protecting this very important habitat. So first of all, the Center's initiative for conserving the Indian coastline. In 1991, the government of India, they issued a notification under Environment Protection Act under the Ministry of Environment and Forest, to protect and conserve the environment and ecosystem of the coastline. And the Coastal Regulation Zone Notification (CRZ) 2019, implemented by Ministry, classified coastal area into different zones, which are now known as the Coastal Regulatory Regulation Zone (CRZ1, CRZ2), where depending on the zonation, the activities have been framed that with the CRZ1 areas are much more eco-sensitive, so no development can be done there, no infrastructures can be established. So these are now being done to manage the infrastructure and regulate them. Three institutes are responsible. The National Coastal Zone Management Authority, they are at the center. The state, union, territory, or every state have their own coastal zone management authorities. Every coastal state and union territory they have, and there are district level committees also in every district that has a coastal stretch. And and where the CRZ notification is applicable. The National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management (NCSCM) they promote integrated and sustainable management of the coastal and marine areas in India, and there is the Integrated Coastal Zone Management Plan for management of the coast using an integrated approach regarding and it includes all the aspects including the geographical and the political boundaries. And what are the roles of these bodies? If suppose a company or an organization some they want to establish some infrastructure. First of all, that company has to have proper has to be approved has to approach these all the authorities who are monitoring this coastal regulation zone plans, and if only they get clearances from the government, then they can only proceed. Otherwise, these body if they examine, they are not they are not actually have been granted the CRZ clearances, then the project developers they cannot proceed. And only if the project development objectives are fulfilled or are successful, only they are proceed. So these five bodies they thoroughly monitor all the aspects, and only then the clearances are given. They also evaluate the measures taken up by the government towards achieving the target under the Sustainable Development Goals or the SDGs. Now, it is a very important issue in terms of conservation. Whatever we are doing, it is a global framework, and there are 17 sustainable goals. You can go through the internet. You can go through. There are many sub goals also, so you can go through the internet, you can learn about these things. So yes, now there is another coastal zone regulation zone notification. Accordingly to the notification, which was drafted in the 1991 by it stated that the coastal lands up to 500 meter from the high tide line level, and at a stage of 100 meters along the banks, creeks, estuaries, backwaters, and rivers, which are subjected to tidal fluctuation, is a coastal regulation zone. Nothing can be done there. Now, the new coastal regulation zone in 2018 and 2019, which was issued under Section 3 of the Environment Protection Act, it was to promote, it actually seeked that to promote sustainable development based on scientific principles which will be taken into account the dangers of natural hazards, sea level rise due to global warming, and to conserve and protect the biodiversity of the coastal and the marine areas, besides livelihood security of the fisher communities and other local communities living there. So, and now we come to the classification of the CRZs or the coastal regulation zone. CRZ1 is again subdivided into CRZ1A and CRZ1B. These are environmentally most critical and constitute the sensitive areas, very ecologically sensitive areas and geomorphological features like the mangroves, coral reefs, sand dunes, mud flats, protected areas like the national parks, wildlife sanctuary, salt marshes, nesting grounds of turtle, birds, horseshoe crab habitats, and etc. And CRZ1B is the intertidal zone, that is the area between the low tide line and the high tide line. Next, we come to CRZ2. These are the developed land areas up to close to shoreline, which within existing municipal limits or in other existing designated urban areas. So here the development can be done. CRZ3 are relatively undisturbed rural areas which do not fall under the CRZ2. These are again further classified according to the census to CRZ3A and CRZ3B. The CRZ3 area, it's an area with a population density more than 2,161 per square person per square meter square kilometer, and in this area an area up to 50 meters from the HTL on the landmark shall be earmarked as no development zone. And uh, the CRZ3 areas, all the other CRZ3 areas, these areas are up to from 200 meters from HTL on the landward side. HTL means the high tide line. On the landward side will be a no development, will be a no development zone. CRZ4 constitutes the water area. It is further stratified into CRZ4A and CRZ4B. The water area and the seabed area between low tide line up to 12 nautical miles is on the seaward side is the CRZ4. And similarly, the CRZ4B, it includes the water area and the bed area between low tide line and the bank of the tidal influenced water body. So what are the activities that are prohibited in the coastal regulatory zone? Setting up of new industries and expansion of existing industries, manufacturing or handling of oil, land reclamation, bonding or disturbing the natural course of seawater except for active permitted activities, dumping of wastes, then groundwater extraction, disposal of plastics, dressing or altering sand mining of sand dunes, dressing and or altering of active sand dunes, port construction of ports and harbor projects in highly eroding area regions. So these activities are prohibited in the CRZ, and only through proper approval any project developers they can carry out their development activities. So these are the, I won't go to the into the details. These are the areas which I have already described in the photo in my earlier slides. CRZ1, CRZ2, 3. There have been further classified in 2011. There were no categorization of the CRZ1 areas. Now in 2018 they have been categorized. CRZ3 has been again further divided into two areas. CRZ4 also has been divided into two areas. So these are the now coastal area accorded special consideration for protecting the the state center has identified some critically vulnerable coastal areas, of which Sundarban is the Sundarban mangroves. They are one of the critically vulnerable coastal area. Gulf of Khambat, Gulf of Kutch, Malvan, Achra, Ratnagiri, Maharashtra, Karwar, Kundapur in Karnataka, Gulf of Mannar, Bhitarkonika, Koringa, East Godavari and Krishna in Andhra Pradesh, the municipal limits of Greater Mumbai, and Indian backwater islands and islands along the mainland coasts. So these have been treated as critically vulnerable coastal areas, which will be managed with the coastal community. So the center actually began uh, it decided that to protect these vulnerable areas, the community who are staying there, they should be engaged, and because it is by them who will actually manage these regions. So now we come to another initiative which the center has started. What is it? It's a blue flag beach program. So a blue flag is a globally recognized eco label awarded to beaches, marine regions, and sustainable boating tourism operators that meet some standards of environmental quality, safety, and management. This is granted by the Foundation of Environmental Education by Denmark. It is an international non-profit organization working to promote sustainable environmental practices through education and certification. India joined this program in 2018, and this program actually aimed to promote the sustainable coastal tourism, to protect the marine ecosystems, and ensure safe, clean, and eco friendly recreation spaces for visitors and local communities. So there are six criterias. If a beach actually fulfills all these six criterias, then only that particular beach is uh, recognized as a blue flag beach. So the environmental education and engagement, it promotes the local ecosystem awareness and community participation, climate action. It encourages energy efficient infrastructure and resilience to coastal erosion, biodiversity management, pollution and water quality, accessibility and safety and services. So if these six key areas are matched, then only they can fulfill this blue blue flag beach program. Now there are, as of 2025, a total certified 18 new beaches across India, both in the eastern and the western coast. They have received the status of blue. They have blue flag status, and their five beaches have been new additions from Maharashtra. They have received the certification in 2025. Previously, there were 13, 12 to 13, and much more were under consideration. And we hope that this number again increases from 18 to a much higher figure. So then now next we come to this integrated coastal zone management. The name itself suggests that it is an integrated approach which will consider all the aspects of the coastal zone, including the geographical, the political, in attempt to achieve the sustainability. It was conceived in 1992 in the Earth Summit of Rio de Janeiro, and it through a World Bank project implemented by the Department of Forest and Environment in assistance with the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. They unveiled this draft, and the draft actually seek to enhance the coastal resource efficiency and resilience by building collective capacity, and it dictates how infrastructure projects situated along the coast would be assessed before they can apply for clearance. by laying out guidelines for coastal states to adopt when they approve and regulate projects. So the National Center for Sustainable Aquaculture is Sustainable Coastal Management is providing the scientific and technical inputs. Uh, this integrated coastal management plan implemented launched by MOEFCC uh, is is actually looked after by a Society of Integrated Coastal Management (CCOM), and the objective is that every coastal state should have its own integrated coastal zonal zone management plan. It should focus on reducing the coastal erosion, reducing vulnerability, disaster, biodiversity conservation, livelihood security, pollution management, and improvement and conservation of the cultural and archaeological assets. So, Society of the Integrated Coastal Management Plan is implementing this in the state and the national level. Three coastal states, West Bengal, Gujarat, and Odisha, they have been selected under ICZM, and the National Coastal Zone Management Program. They include the mapping, delineation, and demarcation of the hazard lines, and they support the capacity building of the state level agencies and institutions, and other government Indian initiatives for conservation of coastal and marine resources. The Wildlife Protection Act provides legal protection to many marine animals. There are total 31 major marine protected areas in India covering coastal areas. The National Committee on Mangroves, Wetlands and Coral Reefs, constituted in 1993, advised the government on relevant policies. The CRZ notification prohibit development activities and disposal of waste. The Biological Diversity of Act of India and the Biological Diversity Rules 2004 advises the government on matters related to protection and conservation of biodiversity, use and equitable sharing of its component and other properties. Then from fisheries, they have in implementing a flagship scheme, the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampad Yojana for sustainable and responsible fisheries. Two of the key objectives are harnessing fisheries potential in a sustainable, responsible, and equitable manner, and robust fisheries management and regulatory framework. The Center for Marine Living Resources and Ecology is looking after the marine to manage the strategy management of the marine living resources to the modeling ecosystem monitoring, and it also has developed a knowledge base on the biodiversity aspect within India's exclusive economic zone, including the hotspots for conservation. Now, and they have also the government of India. They have also launched an initiative known as the MISTI, which is known as the Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitats and Tangible Incomes. So this was launched by by Government of India in the Union Budget 2023-2024 to promote mangrove conservation, restoration, and livelihood. And the key point, it focused on large scale mangrove plantation and restoration in coastal and deltaic areas. It enhanced coastal resilience against climate change. Impacts such as cyclones, storms, such as sea level rise and erosion, integrates local community participation, which is actually very crucial for a successful mangrove restoration. Otherwise, once plantation is done and no one is actually there to monitor, then the plantation will never be successful. So, community participation is very important, and especially the coastal and the fishing communities who reside there. They are the ones who will actually take care, and they are the ones who will actually be benefited once the mangroves develop into a biosphere. It encourages livelihood opportunities to sustainable use of mangrove ecosystem, like harvesting of the non-timber forest products like honey, fisheries, uh, supports India's commitment to climate action, biodiversity conservation, and nature-based solution, and it will be implemented in convergence with existing schemes and coastal management programs. So the main idea of this key initiative is to protect the shorelines, to strengthen the coastal ecosystem, and ensure climate resilient livelihood through mangrove conservation and sustainable management. So this is in short the recent coastal management initiatives. The Mangrove and Habitat Restoration MISTI program restores mangrove and promotes climate resilient livelihood. GCF ECRICC means the Green Climate Fund, enhancing climate resilience of the Indian coastal communities. Is focused on strengthening the resilience of coastal ecosystem and communities against climate change, and it will support the mangrove conservation in the key states. National Conservation and Regulation, National Coastal Mission funds mangroves and coral reef conservation. CRZ notification 2019 protects mangroves as ecologically sensitive areas. It will include planning and data system. Shoreline management plan addresses erosion sustainably. Coastal management information system will collect the essential coastal data. 15 Finance Commission has allocated disaster mitigation funding. The 15th Finance Commission allocates fund for erosion mitigation and displaced people's resettlement. So way forward, I come to the end of my presentation. There is no such way forward or suggestion that can actually work uh, to protect, to conserve the coastal uh, ecosystem, but it has to be a multifaceted approach. The center, the states, all the academicians, the non-profit organizations, they all have to come forward, take their responsibilities, and to protect and conserve this very important ecosystem. So these are some of the points, like conducting a nation their surveys based on the vulnerability assessment. Nationwide island and coastal areas have to be mapped. GPS based, GIS based stations with respect to tide gauge to estimate the land motion and to quantify the future sea level rise over India's coast. Conducting field based topographic surveys to map the accurate inundation of islands and coast. Nature based solutions, participation of the communities, more development of blue economy based on marine and coastal nature-based restoration of ecology with active participation of the community, uh, uh, mainstreaming climate resilient activities for livelihood, and prioritizing integrated coastal conservation into coral actions. And protection of coral reefs and mangroves, and monitoring of coral bleaching and mangrove regeneration, monitoring shoreline changes rate to identify hotspots, and construction of coastal structures, especially bioengineering structures, or protection of highly eroded shoreline zones. So that's it. Thank you very much for your patience. And I conclude my presentation here, and I go back to Sneha. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Sabyasachi, for such a presentation. I will request the participants to come up with questions. You all can either put it in the chat or maybe just unmute and go ahead with the question. There is one, I believe it's a question which has come up from Mr. Sahu, which says coastal communities, especially fishermen, for instance, say from the Chilika area, are migrating to the my meals. Boatmen from Andhra Pradesh are migrating to Gujarat coast and so on. So, do you think it is due to biodiversity loss, or what? What is your take on this, or how to address these challenges? So, basically, speaking about the migration of the fishermen communities. So, is it because of the biodiversity loss, or what is your take on this?
It's a very nice question. Thank you for the question. Yes, there has been a lot of changes because most of the coastal community, especially the fishermen who are dependent on this fishing activities, the fish catches which were mainly available prior to 20 or 30 years ago, or the fishermen who are associated with other with this deep offshore fishing and all, they are not able to get that. They are investing a lot of money, and but they are not getting their catches as per they wanted. And it is not such like maybe the scenario is same for the eastern coast, and the same is different for the western coast. Uh, it's more or less the same. If you go there on that side also, maybe from 10 to 15 years before, whatever the fish catch was there available, now it is not getting. Now for the sake of livelihood, the fishermen are moving or migrating. It's a very huge challenge that is and happening. They have, suppose many of them has also opted out from fishing. And so yes, climate change is a big issue, but more it has to it is more of that there has to be a management of the fishing resources also. It is not that we keep on. We need to understand the government and also needs to make the people aware when to fish, when to not. There has to be a clear cut co-management strategy so that where the communities also will play a very crucial role in management of the fishery resources. But unfortunately, co-management as a part of sustainable fisheries is yet to be developed. There are some regulation acts also, um, but sadly or unfortunately, it's not being followed, and it's also not possible for the fishermen, the small scale fishermen also, uh, to abide by the regulation. Yes, now we also need to understand the coastal communities who are actually migrating from here to there. Are the large scale fishermen or the small scale fishermen? If both of them are being affected in their own way. So, and we need to also think about this how we can manage sustainably these resources. So yeah, it is not only just climate change. It is, I mean, many factors are involved in this. Maybe the coastal community people who were selling who were dependent on fishing are not also getting the proper kind of the revenue to sustain their fishing. If the marketability is also not that much, the value chain which is involved, maybe they are not getting the profit. So there are lots of factors which are involved in this. It is not only that the biodiversity loss, yes, it has impacted badly, but there are also several social economic aspects where which are involved. Somebody has raised a hand.
Uh, Arjun has raised a hand. You can unmute and go ahead. Arjun, am I audible to you? Just put up a statement the way you're saying that climate change is cause of internal greed of consumption. Is we have need to think on carbon emission and pollution control. So maybe he wanted to elaborate on this or say, uh,
Not pollution, not population control.
sorry, population control. So do you want to elaborate on this?
So I want to question him.
Yes, please.
So what do you think about that statement?
This is actually whatever you have said. The anthropogenic greed has been the source of whatever now threats we are facing. It is very true. It is not that it's a very the statement which you have made is not wrong. It's absolutely correct. Now the thing is, we have reached at a position where we if we keep on exploiting the natural resources, uh, then our end is very near, to be frank enough. But if we can act from now on, and then actually we can't reverse the process, but we can actually delay it. There should be constant awareness among all the. It has to be uh, at a very large scale, a mass movement or something like that has to be done. Everybody has to come together, join their hands to take on this. It is not just for one particular scenario. Coastal habitats is just an example. I can say if you go to the from coast, if you go to mountain, also the same issue is there. Also, people are facing the same kind of threats. Maybe their perspective is different, but yes, climate change and is we have since the development we have in the name of development of for development, the process has actually accelerated. Climate changes have occurred in the history of many times, but that were due to the natural causes. We and it happened at its own pace. But what this is happening is that climate change has actually the anthropogenic activities has actually aggravated the situation much more. So yes, thank you for the question. And yes, we there should be a management. We need to think upon it, and there has to be a strat. It is not that today we just think and we go to, and tomorrow we once again start and thinking that no, we will stop it. I cannot do it by alone. Nobody can do it by alone. It has to be a joint effort until uh, till the we can realize. I hope it's not that much late. So thank you.
There is one
Thank you.
more question which says chemical industries situated along the coastal areas are discharging the treated effluent in the deep sea. Is it disturbing? It is disturbing the marine life. How to address the same, considering the fulfillment of chemical requirements?
Yes, this is also very tricky kind because there has to be development and there has to be conservation side by side. Now the situation has become like this that it can't be just development by destroying the environment now. Uh, Chemical industries are mostly due to the suitability of the location they are developed there, and it is, yes, definitely the chemical industries are discharging their effluents into the marine system, and it is impacting the uh, marine life. It is one source of pollution. The So this is actually has to come to now if you want to consider the full to fulfill the requirement of the chemical requirements. Now that has to be that responsibility has to be taken by the by the industry themselves. Maybe they can have some before discharging the effluents. They should have a strict monitoring system. They should have a proper waste management system before discharging the water into, so that the water is treated many times. These I think the chemical industries which are being set up in the uh, coastal regions, that it has to be in their mandate also, and especially their the impact assessment, environmental impact assessment also needs to be done, and this has to be within the norms of the CRZ also. So they should, there is the only way is that they should have proper infrastructure so that they can manage this pollution, and the wastes are properly treated before being released, and it has to be consciousness that we need to talk about. So that's it. It's we can keep on talking, but the thing is, uh, it is it is the responsibility of everybody to take care of the situation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would also like to acknowledge that we have one of our mentors as well with us. Agnihotri sir is also present for the session.
Okay.
And also seen was Patnaik ma'am also. I guess she's just left
Okay. Okay.
as well. Um, Agnihotri sir, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, thank you, Sneha, and thank you, Dr. Sabyasachi Chakraborty, for a very educative lecture. We are dealing in the maritime security domain, but various other facets of ocean sometimes are getting missed by the maritime security practitioners. But one point of commonality, which I spoke about 3 days back also, was that in this year, the India has increased its coastline measurements, and I had pointed out to the gentleman giving the lecture that day that maybe he should update his coastal length of India. It was very heartening to see that you have in your presentation you have cited Ministry of Port Shipping and Waterways latest notification, wherein the coastal length of India has been increased from 7,500 odd kilometers to 11098 kilometers now.
Yes.
So the question arises from there actually. You said the implications, one of the implications of the increased coastal length is that there will be change in the EEZ, country's EEZ. But my understanding is that the larger scale chart was used so that the coastal length could be measured in more
Yes.
with more detail.
Hmm.
Previously, smaller scale chart was used,
Yes,
wherein
yes.
a lot of details were missed while drawing the baselines.
Hmm.
Now that the detailed baselines have been drawn uh, based on the use of larger scale charts, the change in coastline actually is
Hmm.
notional in that way. If the
Yes,
change in coastline is notional, then possibly there is not going to be much impact on the increase in EZ as is commonly understood. If the coastal length increases, then EZ, which is calculated from the base points, 200 nautical miles up, will
yes.
increase. So I would like to know whether there is some merit in thinking that our EZ will also change based on the revised coastline that we have calculated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your point. It's a very nice point. And I think it is way too early to say maybe that how the increase maybe it will take some more time to identify the what are the changes. But yes, definitely, I also agree with you from on my part that there might not be that much of a change in the, but yes, there it will take some time to actually because since this is very recently the changes have been updated, and it's still in budding phase. Maybe it will after maybe 2 3 years or 4 years, maybe after 10 years or whatever, it will be identified. We can this it will be much more prominent. Because to be frankly speaking, sir, I am also that much out of the, it's not my subject also, but I have referred this to make a uh, just to point out. So maybe I also need to learn a bit more about what will be the implications regarding
So
this.
certainly, one more point of education is that everybody, I hope, knows that the Indian Navy is doing the survey work for the whole of nation, at least the maritime survey work. We have got
Yes,
the
yes.
chief hydro officer is a naval vice admiral. So
Hmm.
I guess this point of measuring and promulgating the EEZ would have to be done by the military hydrographers only.
Hmm.
So I'll also be looking out for this particular aspect in case there are some changes from
Yes.
within the Navy. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any more questions from the participant side? Since we aren't getting any more questions, Sabyasachi, is it okay if we call it a day?
Yes, yes, sure. If it's okay.
Um, So, as we come to the end of today's session, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Mr. Sabyasachi Chakraborty
Thank
for such an insightful and informative session. A special thanks to KK Agnihotri sir for taking out time and interacting with us and sharing information as well. And thanks to all the participants for your active participation. So before we conclude, a few announcements. For the next 2 days, we'll be having holidays since it's a weekend, and there will be no sessions over the weekend. Our next and the final session for the ocean literacy course will be held on Monday, and we'll be having our knowledge assessment test on the same day. So please note, everyone, that the e-certificates, that's the electronic certificates which will be mailed to all the participants. It will be issued only to the participants who attempt and submits the knowledge assessment test. And we encourage everyone to attend the final session and complete the assessment. Once again, thank you all for being part of this learning journey, and we look forward to seeing you on Monday for the concluding session. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.